85% of an arterial clog is oxidized. That's the processed, the ruined omega-6, the seed oil. That's the toxic. There's no saturated fat in a clogged artery. Cholesterol is what's called a dependent variable. When everything else is what it is, cholesterol is what it is. And they make up the number. It used to be 250, then it went to 220, then 170. Now they're saying if you have a heart attack, less than 70. It has nothing to do with the cholesterol number. It's all how much good oils is the cholesterol transporting, and nobody's asking.
Welcome to the Health Fix podcast, where health junkies get their weekly fix of tips, tools, and techniques to have limitless energy, sharp minds, and fit physiques for life. Hey, health junkies. On this episode of the Health Fix podcast, I'm interviewing Professor Brian Peskin. He is a world-leading scientist specializing in parent EFAs, essential fatty acids, also termed parent essential oils. Now, he has been advancing the scientific understanding of the role of essential fatty acids in the body's metabolism and how they can help increase cellular oxygenation and work on preventing oxidative stress versus creating it. And this is a misconception that we have thought about for oils. Now, a lot of us have heard seed oils are bad, and that is true in certain cases. We've also been taught in school a lot of misconceptions in the naturopathic space, but also the conventional medical space and social media, whatnot, on what cholesterol really does in the body, what levels are healthy, what's happening with these omega-6 fatty acids and this concept of arachidonic acid, and how we've all been kind of taught in the medical space that it's not good for you. Professor Brian Peskin is going to kind of blow open the doors on a lot of the theories we've been thinking. And he's going to get you thinking about looking at research on a hard science background versus looking at the clinical research, which is what a lot of us docs are basing our principles off of. And the longer I've been in the game, the more I've been asking questions too about, have we been driven towards certain research studies that may not 100% reflect the truth? If you are easily offended by someone who is very opinionated and stands behind their research, this podcast probably isn't for you. Professor Peskin is definitely a pistol. Love him for it. And he gets to the point here. And I have to say, a lot of what he says makes sense when it comes to research. And I'll just say this. I was taught in school that research that isn't showing up within the last couple of years isn't worth paying attention to. But what about when we go back to the research from the 80s and 90s? And this is hard science research that's showing us some of the things like fish oils aren't exactly all they're cracked up to be for us. And they may actually be depleting some of our good omega-6 fatty acids. Now, that's something I think a lot of folks should be considering questioning and looking into. And that's what this podcast is going to do. So let's introduce you to Professor Brian Peskin and his research on essential fatty acids, otherwise known as parent essential oils. Let's get on with the podcast. Professor Peskin, welcome to the Health Fix podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, oils have been a hot topic. There's no doubt about that, whether it's seed oils, whether it's fish oils, because there's been a lot of controversy in my space with the naturopathic medicine and what oils to use, what to do. So I'm glad that you are here today. So what got you interested in oils in the first place?
Well, it started with, I'm an engineer by training. So I come from MIT. I'm an electrical engineer. So a systems guy. Input is the food, body's the system, output your state of health. What got me into this is my wife became type 1 diabetic at 30 years old, doing, quote, everything right. Went out to California, Whitaker Institute, comes back, her blood sugars are worse with the complex carbohydrate diet. So it's like, Brian, I don't know what to do. You're a good science guy. Thank goodness I live in Houston. MD Anderson Cancer Center was kind enough to let me use their medical library, the Jesse Jones Library. It's one of the top 10 in America, 300,000 volumes of journals. and medical textbooks. And after 4 years of being there, it was, my goodness, the science is on the left. What everybody is being told is the exact opposite on the right because of either under publicity or advertising. Everybody is getting harmed unknowingly. Everybody wants to do the right thing. They're getting misled. I need to get into this field and start writing. So I've done 4 books to date and lectured around the world, and a lot of MDs, DOs, natural MDs like yourself, uh, healthcare practitioners are following my advice and the recommend. The outcomes are just phenomenal, phenomenal.
And
So
this
I'm a
is
hardcore science guy. So everything I say today, I will back up by science. Nobody else does this except me, but you'll see the difference real soon.
absolutely what we're looking for, because obviously there's so much out there in terms of do this, do that. No, try this. No, this is going to kill you. And so we
Based
do
on
get
opinion,
confused.
all based
Yeah.
on opinion, which is great for politics or art. When it comes to your health, somebody makes a mistake, they can kill you. And I take this real seriously. I tell people my recommendations don't work and I'm telling you something fundamentally wrong, I deserve to be shot. I've never seen anybody else do that, and I'm dead serious. It's your health. I don't want Brian followers. I just want people listening going, wow, this guy talks fast, gives science I'd never seen before. I can look this stuff up for myself. They can look on my website, brianpeskin.com, won't cost them a nickel, see the kind of science I provide and compare that with anybody else. And there is nobody else. Like Rush Limbaugh is the best. Him and nobody else. It's the same thing with my science. I didn't come up with it, but I connect the dots in a way nobody else does.
I like that. I like that. And one of the
Thanks.
things that I saw was that you have 4 key facts that people have probably not heard or even seen before. And I would love to get you to share that with us.
Yeah, I'll give you 3 right off the bat. Put the
Okay.
glasses on so I can read the small print. But 2009, here's the problem with the medical profession, Doc. They never build on the past. It's always like it's starting with me. In engineering, it's the brilliant engineer of today stood on the shoulders of the brilliant engineer from 20 years ago, who stood on the shoulders of the brilliant guy 50 years ago. Well, I stand on Warburg's shoulders, MD, PhD, Nobel Prize winner, top physiologist, 20th century, Otto Warburg. So, number one, 2009, American Heart Association. Here's their quote: it's incorrect to view the omega 6 fatty acids, seed oils, right, as pro inflammatory. That reflects a rather naive understanding of the biochemistry. So, like, whoever wrote this saw some of my writing because I can be pretty derogatory at times. But if you're calling omega 6 inflammatory, your understanding of biochemistry is naive. And here's how bad it gets. That was 2009. 2018, heart mitochondria. Mitochondria are the energy producers in the cells. We have 100 trillion cells, textbook of medical physiology, molecular biology of the cell. That's where this comes from. And there's mitochondria in every cell, and they are the energy producers. So when your heart's going boom, 60 pulses a second, 72 pulses a minute, rather, not a second, be a little fast. The mitochondria provide the energy. So, parent omega 6 rescues, means fixes the damage of the major remodeling in the cardiolipin. Cardiolipin is the inner layer of the mitochondria induced by long-term intake of DHA. DHA is in fish oil, krill oil, all marine oil. So parent omega 6, which is what they're saying is the seed oil problem, and I'll tell you why they're saying it can be a problem in a minute, because it can be. So seed oil can be either essential or toxic. Quote, it's not the loss of the parent omega 6 alone that drives the impairment in enzyme function, since the Western diet alone did not impair enzyme activities. Instead, it was the replacement of linoleic acid which is the parent omega-6 in the seed oils with DHA that promoted the reduction in activities. So this overload, and I'll tell you why it's an overload, if DHA comes in and shoves what's supposed to be in there, the parent omega-6 out. So it gets displaced. Cardiolipin is in the inner layer of the mitochondria. It's a lipid. The inner layer is supposed to be 20% parent omega-6. And here's how bad it is, Doc. Even on the internet, you've had big people saying, oh, cardiolipin's supposed to be omega-3, like fish oil. Absolutely no. It's supposed to be all parent omega-6. This goes out of Frontiers of Cardiovascular Medicine and the Journal of Biological Chemistry. See, I'm in the hard science journals, and the clinical medical people like yourself never typically see this. They're in JAMA, Lancet, New England Journal of Medicine, the clinical patient-driven ones, not the hard science. And tragically, the hard science never makes it over into the clinical journal. So it's not the medical profession's fault at all. I'm very empathetic that physicians are in the dark about this. They never see it. Here's another one. Parent omega-3 lowers heart disease risk, not DHA. So you can take all the fish oil you want. By the way, think about what fish oil is. I'll tell you what it is. Antifreeze for a fish. And Dr. Rowan, co-author of PEO Solution with me, proved it. You have a fish at 30 degrees. Okay? How do I make it where it doesn't freeze? Because I throw you in the water at 30 degrees. You're an ice cube. We're a lot of water, 60, 70% water. Nature has two ways to stop that. Alcohol, because they throw vodka, for example, in the freezer and it stays liquid. I throw long chain lipids like parent omega-6, parent omega-3 in the freezer. They stay fluid too. But here's the kicker. Is there a difference in how much DHA in the fish between the cold water at 30 and a 70-degree warm water fish? Because there are warm water fish in lakes and streams, that sort of thing. The answer is yes. What's the decrease? 14 times. Not 14%. 14 times less DHAs in the warm water fish because it doesn't need it for the antifreeze. We are at 98.6 on average. What people don't know and is hidden is DHA spontaneously oxidizes, meaning it turns to rust at room temperature. This is why you walk by the fish market in the grocery store and it used to smell horrible. Now they use all kinds of stuff to get rid of the smell. Just imagine how it's going bad at 98.6. And what happens? All your antioxidants come rushing in. Why did this fool overdose on fish oil? I need to get all the antioxidants. Where am I going to grab them from? Well, the brain's got a lot of them. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Do we have epidemics of dementia and Alzheimer's today? Yes, we do. So if I'm grabbing all my antioxidants out of the brain's unprotected. So fish oil is antifreeze for fish. Parent omega-6 lowers heart disease risk, not DHA. Here's the quote out of Circulation 2008. Circulation is a clinical journal for cardiologists, one of the top ones in America, top 3 for cardiologists. Quote, fish intake was similar in both cases and controls. So both people got the fish. And the variation in each group was large, meaning a ton of DHA did nothing to stop the heart disease. Nothing. Now, here's what everybody needs to know, and I've never seen anybody publish this either, except the medical journal I got it from. What is clogging the arteries? How can fish oil help that? Number one, it can't. 85% of an arterial clog is oxidized. That's the processed, the ruined omega-6, the seed oil. That's the toxic. There's no saturated fat in a clogged artery. So the whole medical profession was going nuts with saturated fat, saturated. Well, if you know any biochemistry at all, saturated fat can't combine with anything. That's why it's so good. So it's great to fry in. That's why I love coconut oil. It's 93% saturated fat. But 85% of the clog is the adulterated oil. And the big thing, Doc, is the oil is not going bad. The omega-6 is not going bad in the body. It's coming in from the food. And Dr. Spiteler, one of the top German biochemists at the time, and I spoke with him, he was a chairholder and absolutely brilliant, said they didn't want to publish this in the journals for him, in the scientific journals, because they didn't want it getting out there. It's horrible. So the journals are politicized just like TV is politicized, believe it or not. Most people think they're getting science. They're getting highly controlled things. So it's all coming in already ruined. And the reason is they process it so it doesn't smell like the fish oil going bad. And the reason is you need what's called a bisallylic bond. I'll give you a technical term. I'm not big on that. It just means a double bond tied to a single bond. And you need at least three of them to become any issue of going bad in the body. DHA has six, big problem. EPA, which is the precursor, and they're interconvertible, they go back and forth, has five. Parent omega-6, the toxic seed oil, because almost all food is heavily preponderance of omega-6, has just two. Parent omega-3 has three. These terms, parent omega-6, parent omega-3, what everybody needs to know, they're called EFAs. I call them parent essential oils. Big thing is, all you need to know is body can't make either one. If you don't get them from food, you're deficient. So a cow can make omega-6 from omega-3 and back and forth. I don't care about a cow. We're not. Look in the mirror. You're a person. You're not a fish either. So anything is not applicable to you. So if you don't get both sides, you got a problem. The deal with the omega-6 is it's toxic if it's processed, because that 85% of the clog is from the foods. Anything baked, anything fried, if you're not getting organic oils, there is no assurance they're not ruined. So even the finest restaurants today got rid of lard, got rid of everything, and they're using the processed oils too, so you're not protected. So my first thing to anybody is, whenever you go to the store, anything with fat in it, the cooking oils, the eggs, the bacon, butter, cheese, organic, that's where you spend the money first. Fruits, vegetables, everything else is second. But anything with fat, and all your fat stores keep the residues, the steroids, the hormones, that's where they get shoved. LDL-C is the transporter of these oils. Oh, the cholesterol is going bad. No. The cholesterol is actually called the cholesterol molecule. So you got that in the right or your left. And it's magnetized to the oils, and that goes in the bloodstream. It's called a lipoprotein. So the oils are what goes bad, because when they say cholesterol is oxidized, they grind the whole thing up. I've even lectured at A4M and told cardiologists this. They didn't even know that it was the oils oxidized. And it's called the esterified oils, if you want to be technical. But you don't need to know it. Where does this come from? Dietary polyunsaturated fatty acids and compositions of human aortic plaque. So they analyzed it. High resolution chromatography in the Lancet, world's premier medical journal. Identification, quantification of unique fatty acid oxidative products in human atherosclerotic plaque using high performance lipid chromatography. Annals of Biochemistry. You haven't seen those articles, have you? Of course not. Nobody in the medical field seen it. Structure elucidation of oxygenated lipids in human atherosclerotic lesions. Eicosanoids. Eicosanoids are the derivatives of the parents. So you have the parents, and the parents are the brick and mortar of every cell in your body, Doc. We have 100 trillion cells, 25 to 33%, a quarter to a third, stay in parent form. They're the brick and mortar. Unfortunately, the medical profession 20 years ago thought all the parents go to derivatives. They didn't understand the physiology. they thought they all went to derivatives. So, wow, let's just give the DHA, the EPA, the GLA, all the ones after the parents, the offspring, and make the body easy on itself, right? Let it work less. Wrong. Less than a tenth go to derivatives. 1 part in 1,000. Will marine oil help? Nope. It actually causes blood clotting in patients with existing heart disease. Now, this was in a publication you should have known because it's New England Journal of Medicine, but they underpublicized it. 1986, fish oil makes existing heart disease, atherosclerosis, worse. Quote, patients with atherosclerotic heart disease, prostacyclin, that's your natural blood thinner. Today, everybody's on warfarin, Plavix, Eliquis for a blood thinner, works horribly. 42% decrease taking fish oil. That's almost half less. So your platelets stick together. A natural blood thinner keeps your platelets apart. So when you get the right oils in and they're in that cell membrane, the red blood cells, they stay apart naturally. It's like 2 positive charges on a magnet. If they're screwed up, you get a positive and a negative and they stick. You want 2 positives so they push apart naturally. Prostacyclin, body's natural blood thinner, keeps platelets apart. Of course, anybody with heart disease needs more, not less. Unprocessed omega-6 is the key because prostacyclin, it's called prostaglandin series 2, PGI2, is from arachidonic acid. And they all used to say arachidonic acid is horrible too. That's dead wrong. Arachidonic acid makes that. And PGE1 comes before the arachidonic acid. It's the first derivative after the parent omega-6, and it's the body's biggest anti-inflammatory. And we live in the delta-6 desaturase world. That's the enzymatic pathway that makes PGI1, because inflammation is now known as the key of everything. And I'll get into that in a minute. There's 9 diseases and disorders in the medical literature that have an impairment in that pathway. And if there's an impairment, people are getting chronic inflammation. And here's the last thing I'll give you. 2017, this is relatively recent too. The majority of the cells are hypersensitive to changes of their membrane lipids. Every one of those 100 trillion cells is called the bilipid membrane. 25, 33% is supposed to be the parent oils. Changes of their membrane lipids induced by the diet. This is their quote. Inflammation is now known as key. Now, this is mine. Marine oils become instantly oxidized and like rusted. So what causes the inflammation? The adulterated parent omega-6, because that's the main component in every one of the 100 trillion cells. It's the main component. You don't cook in fish oil. You don't cook in flax oil. So they know it's too reactive with heat. So they're basically telling you this, and then they're telling you to overdose on it. And this was out of activation of the unfolded protein response by the lipid bilayer stress. So everything in the medical research is always protein, protein, protein. This insight tells you the lipids, the oils, control the proteins. And every one of your cells can tell if you're getting screwed up oils. They're putting every patient you see in chronic inflammation. Chronic just means it's daily. It's supposed to not be there. And the reason the cell can tell the oils are screwed up, it's a thermodynamic reason, because that's the first thing I was wondering. How the heck can a cell tell it's a screwed up oil? It's a thermodynamic thing, so it's highly technical. All you need to know is it does. Chronic inflammation is now known to be the core of everything, even cancer. And Weinberg, who turned the oncogene, he's an MIT guy too, reversed at 2010. I'm an MD Anderson area here. The oncologists don't even know this. There's not enough cellular mutations to cause cancer. You need 7 or 8. There's like 3 or 4. He said that was wrong. It doesn't have a basis in reality. It is inflammation taking center stage. That was the quote in this book. Inflammation now takes center stage. Diabetes, type 1, type 2, even if you're shooting insulin, that pathway's not fixed. COPD, any type of inflammatory disorder or disease, fatty liver disease, all of this is inflammation by these oils. So that's a chunk of background. It's real fast. There's a pile of science. Nobody's giving anybody any of this. And it's just sinful. That's why I get so passionate. It's like it's on my shoulders to get this out to the world. And it's a big world. I'm one guy. So thank goodness for physicians like you wanting to get the truth out there with science. And anybody listening to anybody, doc, what's the metabolic pathway that does this? And if they can't give you that, fish oil, what's the dosage? Oh, last one. You know how little fish oil is used in the body per day? In the brain? It's 2 to 6 milligrams. 2 to 6 milligrams. Compare that with what they're telling people to take. 1,000 milligram fish oil capsule is standard. Typically 60% DHA, EPA. That would be 600 milligrams. So 600 divided by 6 is 100. 600 divided by 2 is 300. That means the poor patient taking one capsule, and many physicians are saying 4,000 milligrams, 4 capsules, 100 to 300 times overload per day. Put that in perspective. Take 100 aspirin, call me in the morning. Don't, of course, I'm being facetious. You'll be dead. You'll bleed to death. Oh, but Brian, there's DHA in the eye. Fine, double it. So you're getting 50 to 150 times overdose. I'm really conservative. I like under a factor of 10. Typically 8, 6 to 8 times is it. They're telling you to take 50 times overdose. And the body just doesn't burn it up. It displaces it. For example, your skin, 100% omega-6. I take that fish oil, it goes into the skin. Why is skin cancer, melanoma rampant today? And the dermatologists have no answer and sunscreen won't help you? It's the heat. Remember, DHA spontaneously oxidizes at room temperature, 70 degrees, 72 degrees. What happens when you're out in the sun at 100, hitting your skin? Boom. The intima, the inner lining of your artery, all parent omega-6. There's no DHA in there. There's no parent omega-3 in there. And that's why the 85% is oxidized from what you ate. So they're not telling you any of this. The whole structure of your body is based on parent omega-6, and parent omega-6 is in all the foods. Last thing, and then you start asking me some questions. Be happy to. There's just so, we'll have plenty of time. 12 to 1 is how much parent omega-6 you need in the body. The average organ is 4 to 1. Parent omega-6 to parent omega-3. Forget DHA, it's not in there. None of it's in there. So it's the parent omega-6 to omega-3. 12 to 1. So 4 to 1 is the organs, the heart, the kidneys, the liver. 6.5 to 1 is the muscles. 50% of the body weight. 20 to 1 parent omega-6 to parent omega-3 and all the fat stores. You do a little algebra, it's 12 to 1. So anybody tell you, oh, we're getting overdosed with omega-6. No, we're getting overdosed with adulterated, processed omega-6 that's been processed by the food processors for long shelf life. That's killing everybody. Now, luckily, it goes in as a percentage of what you eat. Dr. Lance did a great study in 1990 that nobody references either. It goes in as a proportion. So if I'm eating 30% bad oils and 70% good oils, every cell is 70% good, 30% bad. You can actually live with that and not die. Not be too sick either. But if it starts 50-50, Otto Warburg showed 35% decrease cellular oxygenation, cancer is induced. It takes years. It could turn up anywhere. This is the reason you don't have fully functional parent omega-6 in the cell. You don't get the oxygenation. You get cancer. And the cancer oncologists don't even understand this. His work is not utilized. So I wrote The Hidden Story of Cancer as a tribute to his work. And you can see it at brianpeskin.com. It's in digital form. So 45,000 copies, 7,500 in the Netherlands, if you can believe this, more than the state of Rhode Island. I mean, 7,500 copies at $60 a book. So they care in Europe more about the health than we do in America. It's really, really tragic. People are not getting the truth about this, spending a pile of money on the wrong things. But this is the biggest problem today, Doc, is inflammation, as I'm sure you'll agree. All the diseases are inflammatory based. It's everywhere. It's in all the medical lectures. And nobody but me is talking about the oils or the prime cause of it. Okay, that's enough of the history, a little bit of it. And I'll be happy to answer any specific questions. I'm sure there's a ton of them.
Yeah, of course, because I think a lot of people are very confused right now,
Sure.
on so many levels because we've been kind of told, go dairy free and switch over to all of these vegan,
It's all
cheeses,
garbage.
and it's
Yeah,
it,
garbage.
exactly, and
It's the additives. So for the meat, it's all the additives, the hormones and steroids. So I tell everybody natural or organic. You don't want that because 1900s, everybody was living meat and potatoes if you had any money.
yeah,
If you could eat meat, 5% cancer, 5% heart disease. Oh, Brian, they didn't track it. Really? I had my hands on an 1850 journal of the Lancet, the premier medical journal in the world. And in 1900, they had categorizing cancer and heart disease out in New York. It was tracked. It didn't exist. An idiot can look at a cancer cell and tell it's cancer. Same thing with a clogging heart disease. So it doesn't require any big deal. I'm not talking about something that's close. I'm talking about fully cancerous. It's a mess. It's obvious as heck. So it is easy to figure it out. And they did figure it out. It was 5%. So when I started this, how do you go from 5% in 1900 to the average person gets cancer today? It's 70% in men, typically prostate cancer. It's 50% in women. So the average person gets cancer. If you don't get cancer, you're the anomaly. You get cancer, you're average as heck. You're nobody special. It's predicted you're going to get it. And again, you're getting processed oils where I want you. But it's so easy not to get it by getting the organic oils in the right ratios. And it's the number one nutritional deficiency in America. Take your vitamins and shove it. They do nothing. They're still in the food. I'm not saying some won't help you a little bit, but it's in the noise. So as an engineer, what's the main problem? What's the 90% where all the bang for the buck is? And what's the 10%? The 10% is where everybody's spending their time. I'm looking at the 90, and I hate this everything in moderation. I saw that on some website thing. So I'm going, right, cyanide in moderation, question mark. If you don't know, cyanide is a poison. It stops cellular oxygenation and you're dead. So anybody that tells you everything in moderation knows nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because if you know nothing, what do? Stop the kitchen sink or throw the kitchen sink at it. I'm a specialist. I don't even like it, the word expert. I specialize in this area. And generalized concepts without sharp, specific conclusions are meaningless. They're absolutely worthless. So a lot of doctors don't like talking to me because I'm very brutal. And if you're wrong, I'll tell you you're wrong. They're very collegial. I'm not, because in science, I design a building and it's wrong. The roof collapses and kills everybody in it. I don't have the luxury of making a mistake. Medical profession, oh, your cholesterol is too high. Your eye color's wrong. This is off. That's off. You're different. 27 excuses. My comment is, I don't have any excuses. There's biochemistry, there's physiology, and we're much more alike than we're different. Oh, everybody's different. Can you live underground like a termite? I don't think so. Can you go in a garage and breathe gas fumes from your car? I don't think so. You're dead. I'll live longer because I oxygenate much more easily and better than you if you're not getting the oils than I am, but I'm still dead too. I can't usurp science, biochemistry, and physiology, and nobody's getting any of it. They're getting opinions.
Yeah.
They're getting opinions. So don't believe anything you see on the internet. 90% of it's garbage. Now, I know this is on the internet, but I'm giving you the science. If you're getting recommendations on the internet, don't believe them unless they give you science. It's horrible. I want to see the quote, like I gave you the quote, I gave you the journal, and if somebody's putting it out there, they better do the same thing. And I guarantee they're not, because they're misleading you or outright lying. They just want money today. Money's fine, but you better provide the truth and a service for that money, or you should be shot.
Oh my goodness. I love your brutal honesty. We need this. So let's talk about diabetes and oils, because obviously this is kind of where you got into your research
Diabetes,
with your
yes,
daughter,
my
or your
wife.
daughter, your wife, sorry,
Yes.
yes.
Well, here's amazing. It's the fastest disease growing in America and now the world. There's no end in sight. 1988, 89, 2003, fish oil raises blood sugar and blunts the insulin response. The insulin dose of the subjects had to be increased throughout the 6-month period of fish oil to maintain constant glucose. So to keep blood sugar 70 milligrams, 90 milligrams, that's the average. By the way, it's only 1 teaspoon of sugar in the whole bloodstream. When I saw 70 to 90 milligrams per deciliter, I'm an engineer. I want something simple. I know teaspoons. How many teaspoons is it? Must be 50 or 100. You know, everybody's being told a high carb diet. Carbs are sugar. They all go to glucose. So don't let anybody tell you they don't. Fiber is not food, so that doesn't count. It's food for a cow. Humans can't digest fiber. And complex carbs go to sugar too. It's just 10 minutes later. So the whole glycemic index is made up BS. And I looked at the curves out of Europe, and it's 10 minutes difference. It's the same amount of sugar. So don't buy this. Oh, it's slow. What's your definition of slow? 10 minutes isn't slow. So 88, 89, 2003. Another important finding, consumption of a fish oil enriched diet worsens glycemic tolerance. Fish oil causes insulin resistant, reducing glucose clearance rate by 26%. 26% worse to get the sugar into the cell. Fish oil turns normal people into diabetics. It was observed in healthy human subjects. 3-week supplementation of diet with fish oil, 6 grams a day. So this is 6 capsules. Insulin was only 60% effective. 40% of insulin's effectiveness was blunted after 3 weeks. Metabolism is the medical journal this came out of. Annals of Internal Medicine, British Medical Journal and Nutrition. They're always telling you, oh, you didn't give enough fish oil. You need more, you need more. Well, here's your more, people, fish oil proponents. The more you give, the more you're turning a patient diabetic. You got to be out of your mind. Nobody is given this information. Nobody. It's horrible.
Wow. Wow.
It's amazing, isn't it? But again, this is in the past. This is 11 years ago, 15 years ago. Nobody goes to the past and sees, wasn't this already done? It's like cholesterol. I saw something last week come out. Oh, it doesn't really matter how much cholesterol containing food you eat because the number stays the same. We looked at people eating 2 eggs a week versus 12 eggs a week, 6 times more. There was no difference in their cholesterol level. Gee, 30 years ago, I was told don't touch eggs for the cholesterol. Why didn't somebody do this absolutely brilliant study 30 years ago? Doesn't sound too hard to me. Give you 2, then give you 12. This is how bad it is. You want to see the difference? It's trivial to do a study, an experiment. It takes a week. And nobody's ever said this. I mean, am I the only one with a baseball bat going? Are you an idiot? I mean, it's unbelievable. Cholesterol, there's no sensor in the bloodstream, by the way. Body doesn't care what it is. Cholesterol is what's called a dependent variable when everything else is what it is. Cholesterol is what it is. And they make up the number. It used to be 250, then it went to 220, then 170. Now they're saying if you have a heart attack, less than 70. It has nothing to do with the cholesterol number. It's all how much good oils is the cholesterol transporting. And nobody's asking that. You were going to ask me a question about oxidized cholesterol?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ask it.
Yeah. So it's one of the things I've started to test a little bit
Yes.
just to see in kind of like on the inflammation trajectory.
Excellent. It's a
So
good measure.
I would like, yeah, tell us your opinion on it and tell us your thought process on how we
It's
can
an
maybe
excellent
use that.
measure. It's an excellent measure. You can see what it is. I had that done. I was in the middle. And because of the oils I take, it counteracts most of the inflammation because I'll smoke some cigars from time to time. So I was in the middle, and even with that, my heart DPA, which is digital plasmography, when you look at the curves of the blood flow and the flexibility of the arteries, 20 years younger than my biological age. So the healing I have is just inhuman. And I do martial arts stuff, so always getting banged around, and the healing is just very, very fast, faster than anybody else that's not getting the oils. But oxidized cholesterol is a good number, and it will be measuring how much bad oils you're getting. Or are the oils going bad? Now, with smoking, with alcohol, more will be going bad in the body than what you're eating. So I eat pretty well. I'm more organic, so I don't get much of the bad oils coming in. But heat will, screw them up. Chemicals will screw them up. And it's a good measure. You can also do particle size. There's different particles. It's the small ones that give you the problem. But if you're getting these oils, your level of protection goes through the roof.
So here's a home study that I think a lot of folks could do. They could wipe out the oil, like take out the fish oil, take out the processed oils, test their oxidized LDL before, and then take it all out. 3 months later, recheck and see
3
how they
months
did.
later, 90 days later, absolutely. That's enough time to make the difference. But all fish oil stop, get organic oils, and get a supplement that has the right, ratios of parent omega-6 to parent omega-3 as a supplement. I like 1.5 to 1 at the lower end to 2.5 to 1 in favor of parent omega-6 because we are getting some from food. All foods contain them, and they're not all bad. If they were all bad, we'd all be dead right away. So they're not all bad. But again, 35% decrease in that cellular oxygen is all you need to get cancer. So you don't need a lot of bad ones, but you can get some bad ones.
Yeah.
So that's the key, is getting the right supplement in you.
Makes sense.
And I think they gave you some of the ones that have the right formulations. I'm a hardcore scientist. I just do science, but there's nutritional companies that pay me as their consultant to tell them based on science, what do you need? And these companies don't pander to people. They give you what the science says you need. Everybody else gives people what they think they need. And when I formulate, it's my job is to know what you need and what you think you need. It's like calcium. We don't give any calcium in any minerals because calcium's everywhere. And by the way, it's the last stage of heart disease. So you got all these poor women trying to get harder bones, taking calcium, it precipitates out and gives you a heart attack. Unknowingly, they're trying to do it, but these oils also build the bone matrix. So you want a flexible matrix. We've had numerous people taking the oils fall, and the healing is incredible. No fractured bones, no shattered bones, no concussions. I mean, it's unbelievable what these oils do. Just slopping minerals on a bone makes it more brittle. It's the exact opposite of what you want, but that's the only way they can get the bone density up because they don't know what the bone matrix is made of. They don't look at the physiology. It's the oils and protein. So if you eat a protein, get enough protein in your diet, and you get these oils, you have no problem. And osteoporosis is not a lack of calcium, that's rickets. That's a different issue. Osteoporosis is bone matrix. So they're using the wrong term, misleading everybody. And then the bone density tests are basically giving you how much you have dumped on it. It's like I have, calcium sheetrock and I drop it on the ground, it's all going to crack. Well, that's what you're doing to your bones. That's not what you want. You want protection, but you don't want it cracking. And it's just horrible. My job is next to impossible, Doc, because what I tell people is you do know a lot about nutrition, but unfortunately, everything you quote know is wrong. Then you got to listen to me saying everything you know is wrong. And then hopefully you listen to half of what I say, how to fix it. So the job's impossible. People don't like being told they've been wrong, but they've been misled. It's not like they've deduced anything or figured out anything on their own. They trusted people in apparent positions of authority that didn't know what the hell they're talking about. And if you don't know what you're talking about, you should shut your mouth. What I tell people is if I don't know, I'm obligated to tell you I don't know. I don't make things up. But too many people do. It's tragic today.
Yeah.
Absolutely tragic.
No,
But yeah, I like your method of the 90-day with checking the oxidized cholesterol. Your memory goes through the roof. You can talk like a bat out of hell. I could never do this before. Just imagine getting these oils in your kids. Laser attention, Energizer bunny, energy-wise, not lethargic, sharp. Today, everybody is brain dead. I was thinking about getting a t-shirt. I'm talking to a rock. Brian, what do you mean by that? My answer is precisely. You're talking to me. That means you're the rock. They don't even get it. You go to Starbucks, you got to tell them the same thing 3 times. I was at the cat store getting my cat some cat food. How do you spell your name? Peskin. P as in park. Eskin. Half minute goes by. Did you find me? No. Peskin. P as in park. Eskin. Another half a minute. No. Find me? No. That's B. I said it's P as in. They don't even listen to what you're saying. It's not they're not listening. They're listening. They have no attention. They have no cognitive ability. It's unbelievable today. No memory, no cognitive ability. I'm sure you're seeing it in your patients. Brain fog. I can't think. I forget everything I'm told. This never, ever, ever used to happen. And it has gotten so bad over the past 2 years because I monitor this. I mean, it's what I do. And there's no excuse for it. None, except you're getting these bad oils. It's really, really bad. And now you're getting it out of the womb. So you have the mother getting these oils. The baby comes out, no skin problems, no coughing, no cognitive problems. She snaps back in, a month with the energy. And women need to know nature is tough. The baby gets all your good EFAs. You're deficient. That's why you're a mess after you give childbirth. And if you don't have any of them, the kid's going to be deficient too. And we're getting that all the time. And all these childhood diseases and disorders are all caused by EFA deficiency because it never used to exist. So you can take all the vitamins and all the stuff the OBGYN puts you on. Again, they're the 10 percenters. They don't even know about the oils. And mother's milk is 10-1, parent omega-6 to parent omega-3. Now, the formula they give you is completely butchered. It'll kill the kid. I'm amazed the baby lives. But natural mother's milk, we saw it analyzed. And it mimics the 12-1, like I was telling you. It's 10-1. And it's the science is all there. We don't need more science. We need understanding what's already been done. And we need the dots connected. And that's what I'm particularly good at, connecting the dots. Because I don't invent the science. I'm giving you references. We have brilliant people out there. And I call most of the scientists brilliant idiots. I go, analysis, or the way they figured out how to do it with radioisotope testing and this and brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Then I see the conclusion. It's like, are you an idiot? So it took me 3 months to figure out the term brilliant idiots. Even the brilliant people give a conclusion that's idiotic. It's like you already know the conclusion and you're going to make it fit because you were paid to. And it's just tragic. It's just tragic.
If I've learned anything in the last couple of years, it's everything that I've been taught was a lie and I have to relearn it. And this
You
is
got it. You got it. I get that from more and more physicians that it's just horrible. And it's all dogma. It's all dogma. We do it this way because it's like cholesterol. Do you even know what you're measuring? No. I've asked numerous cardiologists, do you know there's no cholesterol sensor in the bloodstream? No, I didn't know that. Wouldn't you kind of need, well, there's one for sugar levels. It's good to 1 part in 1,000 or you're diabetic. Calcium, potassium, sodium, there's sensors for everything. Oh, it's a genetic defect, Brian. No, it's not. If you knew any kind of mathematics, it's a dependent variable. So I can bring the engineering and the physics into the medical field and advance it. And these people just make excuses, but they're giving you a number. They don't even know what the heck it's measuring. Even the oxidized cholesterol, this professor in physiology at the A4M conference I was at in 2010 in Las Vegas, the biggest conference in the world. He goes, Brian, I lost you after 10 minutes of your lecture. I said, Doc, it's not fair. He goes, and I teach this stuff. I said, it's not fair. I've given you 20 years worth in an hour shoved down your throat. It's like taking a drink from a fire hose. I said, don't your students get undergraduate degrees or graduate degrees in physiology? He goes, no, it's too hard. They don't want anything to do with physiology. And if you don't know the physiology, you don't know anything. But Textbook of Medical Physiology is the #1 physiology textbook in North America, 22 editions, 22 years. And of course, there's other ones too, but the physiology is all the same. It's like a textbook just has different points of view that they start and stop and in the middle, but it's all the same stuff. It's like you can't breathe oxygen 6 feet underground. You're not a termite. You're going to die. None of us can, unless you put a straw up there. But I'm not talking about that. But it's pretty bad when the professionals don't even know this that are teaching. It's exactly what you said. You learn dogma. Physicians have huge memories. I tell people I don't have the memory. That's why I went to MIT. It's short. I don't care about the term, but I guarantee I understand what the term means. You know the term, but you probably don't understand anything about what it means. It's like the oxidized cholesterol. Most of the people that they have no clue what you're measuring is the oxidized oils. Cholesterol itself doesn't oxidize. Nearly impossible. Absolutely impossible. And it's called the cholesterol part. So they don't even use that. But it's highly, highly resistant to antioxidation.
yeah.
It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I think if I didn't teach anatomy and physiology for a while at an undergraduate level, I probably would have just, mommy like followed the pattern, unfortunately. But once you start looking at it, you go, man, stuff just doesn't make sense now that I know the basics. It's kind of wild. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about is
Yeah.
the Easy Trek product,
Yeah.
because you've got that out there. There's a blend of different oils in there. And I think, for a lot of people, they're going to be listening to this and going, how do I change things? What do I do? How am I going to fix things other than
Sure.
avoiding the oils,
I developed Easy Trek as nutritionally supporting an impaired delta-6 desaturase pathway.
Okay.
It's a medical food. So there's supplements that have nothing. Medical food that requires it to be a food. So it's from the oil. So it's actually a food. It is targeted to nutritionally helping to maximize a metabolic pathway that's impaired. And there has to be a pile of science supporting it. So there's very few real medical foods. Infant formula was one where the infants couldn't metabolize the amino acids. So if you go to your supermarket, you'll see it under lock and key in the formula section. That was the first medical food. So diseases and disorders of inflammation, you have to be under physician's care to get a medical food. They don't need a script, but you need to be under their care just to monitor it. So people can look at a goodforhealth.org is the distributor of the medical food, and they could take a good look at it. But there's 9 diseases and disorders in the medical literature that talks about the impairment here. So the results we get are incredible, and that's both type 1, type 2 diabetes. Doesn't matter if you're shooting insulin. You can't fix the pathway. We don't fix it. It's not a drug. They don't fix it either, but it's not a drug, but we don't fix it. We help nutritionally compensate, which thank God we can, because it's the body's most powerful anti-inflammatory and vasodilator. COPD has helped tremendously. Neuropathy has helped. Retinopathy in the eyes for diabetics has helped. Fatty liver disease. Cancer is now known as inflammatory disease. So there's reports on there, and you can see about it, and I talk about it too with some videos, but it's a very advanced medical food. And if anybody has these diseases or disorders, 90 days, if it's going to work and going to help, you should see a difference. But that's it. You don't need more than 90 days. And
Okay.
it's just a teaspoon a day. It's so powerful. A little teaspoon doesn't even taste bad. I mean, it's an oil,
Right.
but you just take a teaspoon a day. It's no big deal. And you're going to know fast. We've had people go off oxygen within a month with COPD, if you can believe this.
Wow.
Some of the results that the physicians have given to me, I wouldn't believe myself if I didn't know them. I'd go, maybe you could get this result in 3 to 6 months, not in a month. And people on steroids, they can decrease it, they can get off. Blood pressure, unbelievable how it will decrease the blood pressure, because right now you have high blood pressure, your artery's a straw. You start taking these, oh, it's flexible. That's the 120 over 80. So it's 120 over here, but then it goes back minus 40. That's your 80. So we change it from a straw to a balloon. We have numerous patients reported by doctors, even lowering it after they're on the drugs, beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, whatever it is, ACE inhibitors. I mean, there's all kinds of drugs. The way they work isn't good. Most people are very tired because they decrease blood flow, is the way they decrease the blood pressure. They don't fix the flexibility of the artery. They give you half the flow. Well, half the flow is half the nutrients, half the oxygen. That's chronic fatigue. So it's a bad state of affairs. So the results are phenomenal, but people can take a look at the goodforhealth.org, watch those videos, and then check with their physician and or somebody that can write a script. That's the thing. So NDs can write scripts in many states. PAs can write scripts in many states. MDs, DO, as long as they can write a script in the state, they can be under the medical care, and Easy Trek can be for them. It's a phenomenal product. It's really the culmination of 20 years of my work. There's nothing in the world like it.
It's fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me, especially for all the results that you're getting and just kind of thinking through, okay, how can these things work out for folks I'm thinking about? Now, of course, one of the big things that I'm sure I'm going to get in terms of question, because I am in Tacoma, Washington. We are
Yeah,
seafood all over the place here.
seafood's fine. Yeah, yeah.
That's what I was curious, because I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh my gosh, if fish oil is bad, am I not supposed to eat seafood?
You can eat the seafood. I'm big on wild because you don't want the farm stuff. But remember, fish oil is a processed food. They're getting it typically from a ton of spoiled fish. Think about where this came from. I have all this spoiled fish. I can't sell it to the prime restaurant. Where can I dump it? Nutritional supplements is the ground for any kind of waste product or garbage you have. You can con people into thinking it's good. But the fish itself, So, because the more oil makes you more diabetic and wrecks the insulin response and the glycemic response, less oily fish is better. So, codfish is great. I fry codfish all the time. Avocado oil, coconut oil, that's organic, no problem with frying whatsoever. Uh, you can eat the shrimp. I love wild shrimp. Trader Joe's is on the coast your way. You can get a pound for like $10, and it's wild. It's in the ocean. Delicious. Uh, you can eat the fish is just fine. Typically, most of the oil gets cooked out of it. It drains away, but it's not a processed food. So how many fish did it take to get a 1,000 milligram capsule? A lot. So you don't need to worry about eating fish. Good question.
I
It's
knew
a
I knew I
fish
might get
oil. Excellent question.
it. I figured I would get that one.
Of
So
course.
I think the biggest thing now for folks, they're probably thinking like, okay, if I oxidized LDL might be a good experiment. Maybe knowing the D6 pathway, I've done that doing omega tests just to see. Do you recommend these kind of tests where folks poke their finger and do the
You can
omega
do
6
the blood
testing?
spot test.
That's what I
I've done
thought.
it. You can look at it. I honestly don't recommend it now, but don't look at their guidelines. They're made up. They'll have everybody saying you don't have enough DHA. And all the studies that come out, I don't care how much DHA you take, your cognition isn't better. Your
Yeah.
vision isn't better. It's failure, 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 and they underpublicize it. Because I always go into Whole Foods, hey, an article just came out, fish oil fails again, sales down at all, and they look at me like I'm nuts. No, it's like the medical field, once it's on and tells you to get something, they don't change because the physicians don't want to be wrong. They don't want to say I'm wrong. My new book, PEO Solution, it's not new now, but 2015, a doctor MD, PhD, or DO, PhD, said, I have a confession to make. I was wrong with fish oil. He's one of the rare ones that actually said it and put it in print. He wrote the introduction. He was giving a big lecture at A4M on cancer. I see him at the end going, hey, doc, there's a pile more you need to know. Typically, they all tell you to go to hell, right? Like, who are you to tell me I don't, I just gave the keynote lecture to 1,200 people and you're telling me I don't know enough. I said, I wrote a whole book on it. I'll get it to you. Won't charge you as long as you promise to read it. Send it to me. You promised to read it? Yes, and he did. And he goes, your next book, I'm going to write the foreword to it. He actually read it and cared. But there are so few today that will admit they're wrong. And it's Fred, you show me wrong, I'll change on a dime.
Yeah.
I've never been shown wrong in anything I've said because before I open my mouth and publish something, I go round and round, check it 10 ways like Warburg did. He would do an experiment 10 times. Now you get people doing it once, get lucky, it comes out the way they want it to. It's wrong because probability wise, they don't understand and nobody can duplicate it. This goes on in cancer all the time. Hey, we couldn't duplicate your experiment. Did you duplicate it? And the answer is always no. Why not? Because we don't get paid to duplicate anything. We get paid to do it once, get the result, hopefully the one we want. It's horrible. It's really, really horrible. It's so bad. I wrote a book on medical statistics. Glenn Stantz, California, PhD, lectures physicians on statistics. He goes, it's so bad, we're using a statistic that isn't valid, but the medical profession won't understand the right one. So we're using the wrong one and letting them go with it. I looked at that 3 times. I couldn't believe what I was reading. And it's relative risk versus absolute risk. The whole medical profession gets conned. For example, statins are 98.5% failure. There's a 1.5% success rate, which means out of 100 people, 1.5 gets a positive success. So to put that in perspective, I design iPhones, 98 out of 100 blow up in your face and kill you. Medical profession, you go, hey, that's wonderful. 2 of them worked. Me as an engineer, I'd go, you're fired yesterday. But this is how bad it is. 2 out of 100 work. We're doing great. You should be looking with your face down on the floor in embarrassment. But I tell people if drug companies had to give the real probability of how it works, You won't get many drugs because they all fail, but they have to give you the illusion that they work. But this book by Stanton Glatz, Glantz, I think, was unbelievable. Unbelievable. We're publishing the wrong stuff because they don't understand the right stuff. So 2 and 2 is 6. Yeah, because I mean, I don't even know what you say to that. I read
That's
this stuff and I'm speechless. And after listening to me for a little bit, can you imagine what it takes to make me speechless? The absolute stupidity of what's written. But it's real hard. Again, Easy Trek is a new evolution. It's only been in the market 2.5 years. The success rates are phenomenal. You'll know the how it works for you relatively fast. There's no contraindications at all. Nothing, because it's a natural food.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, all
I
I
hope
can
you'll check
say,
it out too. I hope
I'm
you'll check it out too.
I'm
In,
definitely
in
going
your
to.
patients, I think it'll make a difference.
I'm definitely going to. I mean, I'm at a point in my practice, like
Because everybody's
I've
EFA
noticed.
deficient. So what I tell docs is this will turbocharge any specific protocols you have. Because if you're not maximizing the terrain and the cell itself, everything you're doing isn't maximized. You add this in there compared to what specific things, the patient may have wrong with them, because everybody has this as a problem. Outside of somebody like Dr. Rowan, a raw foods vegan, that's 1 in 10,000. Nobody's doing that.
Yeah.
Everybody else has chronic inflammation, whether you know it or not, you do. If you're eating processed oils, and everybody is, typically unknowingly, especially the more they're eating in restaurants. So I hope people will take this very seriously. And EFA deficiency is by far the number one problem in America and the world today. And it's not being addressed.
I would agree. I would agree. It's one of those things we got to question everything and do the homework. Do the homework.
I know.
Glad you are doing your homework to the T. Very important for us folks out there who are looking for the truth in medicine, and just great stuff. I look forward to trying Easy Trek. I will definitely give folks an update on what happens, because I do have oxidized LDL results on myself, also on my dad who's 88. And I think we're going to try it out with him and a couple other
Pop
folks.
me an email and I'll get you some of the clinical case studies from the docs that have reported back to me on their patients so you can see what to expect with this. But pop me an email.
Awesome. I would love to see that. Love to see that. Dr. Peskin, such great stuff. Thank you for all of your hard work. We all out there who are searching for truth in medicine sincerely appreciate it.
My pleasure. Glad to be of service. Thank you.
Hey, fellow health junkie, thanks for listening to the Health Fix podcast. If you enjoyed tuning in, please help support me to get the word out about the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review, and just get that word out. Thanks again for listening.